Basis Conversion and Development Authority, or BCDA. We'd like to acknowledge our Vice Chair, Senator Amy Marcos. Morning, ma'am. And we'd also like to acknowledge the President and CEO of the BCDA, Mr. Vincent Dizon. We also have EVP Zosa, SVP Radok, SVP Bingkang, SVP Stanislao, Vice President Rolona, Vice President Beres, and from CDC, or the Clark Development Corporation, we have President and CEO Noel Manangkil. Morning. And AVP Paras. Good morning to all the officials present. I hope I didn't miss anybody. So go ahead, President Vince, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Senator Amy, Madam Vice Chair, thank you very much. I hope you're all staying safe po, and despite all the challenges, thank you very much.
Thanks to you.
Thank you so much po for having us today. This will be a presentation on the 2021 proposed budget of the BCDA. The total proposed budget, which primarily include continued developments in New Clark City, mostly road projects, as well as replication projects for the Armed Forces of the Philippines, amounts to a total of 5.795 billion. This is a 44% decrease from the 2020 GAA appropriation of 10.416 billion. This also, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, includes improvements to the Clark International Airport, as well as right-of-way acquisition for the Subic-Clark Railway project, which is one of the infrastructure flagship projects of the President, and as well as the sewage treatment plant for the new Senate building in Fort Bonifacio. Next slide, please.
Vince, I know you have a long presentation. You don't have to go through all of this, no? I think we have it before.
I'll go through it very briefly.
Just the major points, siguro.
Mr. Chair, I won't go through the performance report anymore, Mr. Chair. And I will go straight to the... sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we see all the roads here, so you can skip that. Okay lang ba, Vice Chair Amy? Pwede na, skip yan, di ba?
Yes, I'll go straight to Senator Angara, to the asset disposition program, because I think there were some questions here during the Commission on Appointments confirmation of Armed Forces Chief of Staff General Gapay. We just wanted to clarify a few things. First of all, next slide, please. Yes, so we just wanted to clarify, first of all, how the flow of the disposition proceeds based on Republic Act 7227, the act creating the BCDA, how BCDA remits the proceeds from the disposition of assets under Republic Act 7227. And essentially, the figure in your screens show how the movement of proceeds goes from the disposition of proceeds by BCDA eventually to the Armed Forces of the Philippines, as well as other beneficiary agencies. So as mandated by law, BCDA remits the proceeds on a yearly basis to the National Treasury, depending on the allocation as mandated by law for both the Armed Forces of the Philippines as well as other beneficiary agencies. So this is done yearly, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and upon remittance to the National Treasury, then the Department of Budget and Management then appropriates appropriates the funding based on the National Expenditure Program submitted to Congress, depending on the the submissions of the agencies concerned, which includes the Armed Forces of the Philippines. And after Congress passes the General Appropriations Act, this funding then is downloaded to the various beneficiary agencies, including the AFP. Next slide, please. And to date, as of December 2019, a total of 108.21 billion pesos. I'm sorry, as of August 2020, 108.21 billion has been received by BCDA in terms of disposition proceeds.
Can you just give us a status report on that, Vince?
Yes,
in writing.
Yes, Mr.
More
Chairman.
detailed.
Okay.
In more details. Yung detailing the assets, etc.
Yes. We wrote a letter po to the members of the Senate earlier, prior to the start of the budget hearings. We will resend that, Mr. Chairman. Next slide,
Baka
please.
CA lang pinadala nyo. Baka CA lang. Lahat pinadala nyo?
Hindi po, lahat po ng senators, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, sige. Okay.
But we will
go ahead.
resend it po. We will resend it po, Mr. Chairman. And then next slide, please. Just to show you the remittances throughout the years. So from 1993 to 2009, the previous, from the administration of President Fidel Ramos all the way to the administration of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, the total remittances of BCDA amounted to 32.3 billion, and out of that, 18.4 billion for the AFP. For the entire Aquino administration from 2010 to 2015, 14.5 billion to the Bureau of Treasury, 13 billion to the AFP. But for the, as you notice, only in the first 3 years of the Duterte administration, we have already remitted a total of 16.4 billion to the Treasury, which includes 15.2 billion to the AFP, only in the 3 years of the Duterte administration. We have actually already surpassed the previous administration just in the first 3 years.
Like to acknowledge Senator Binay. Morning, Go ahead. Sige, Vince, go ahead.
Finally, Mr. Chairman, next two slides, we just want to show the utilization of the budget from the previous years. So for 2020, our current utilization is at 81%, Mr. Chairman. But we are very confident that we will be able to utilize the entire amounts, despite the challenges of the pandemic, within the next few months of 2020, Mr. Chairman.
You don't need to extend the ma-obligate nyo yan lahat, Vince?
Ma-obligate po. Mukha pong ma-obligate po ito. Yun naman po,
Okay.
2019, we were given until end of this was the budget
Yeah, we
that was
extended the budget.
Mr. Chairman.
About
Yes, we are confident that we will be able to obligate all the remaining 10% in 2019, as well as the remaining 19% for 2020 before the end of the year, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Sige,
That ends my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you
Vice Chair
very much.
Amy, you have the floor. Yeah, Vice Chair Amy, you have the floor, ma'am. You're on mute, I think. You're on mute, Amy. You're on mute.
May separate Zoom po ata.
Vice Chair Amy. Okay, Nancy, do you want to go ahead? Since Amy seems preoccupied. You have any questions for
BCDA was unable to deliver on a obligation under the contract with Mega World to clear the entire property. So meron pong natirang ilang hektarya? Yes, BCDA was unable to clear about 200 informal settlers, 200 informal settler families within the prescribed timeline in the contract, which delayed the development of Mega World for an area in the Jusmag property po. So that is the legal issue in question, Mr. Chairman, Senator Nancy.
Okay.
And plus kung 2020, kung isasama na natin yung 2020, more or less.
Plus, hindi. Opo, so 1.9 po plus 875, so mga ano po, mga 2.7, 2.8 billion.
Okay. Medyo malaki din pala sa President Bill,
Malaki
di ba? So nasa account receivable nyo to ngayon.
Yes, opo.
It's part
Yes,
of your... So aside from Mega World, may mga ganito pa ba kayong account?
Wala po. Madam Chair, wala po.
Any other pending cases? No, President. Any other pending cases?
Meron po with Camp John Hay, the Sobrepena case with Camp John Hay Development Corporation. It is pending before the Supreme Court, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Senator Nancy.
Okay.
Pero dun sa Camp John Hay, may non-payment din sila.
Hindi po. Actually, ang ano po doon is ang BCDA po ang magbabayad sa Camp John Hay ng 1.4 billion pesos based on the arbitral ruling in favor of Camp John Hay Development Corporation. Pero there is a question po on the third-party lessees that BCDA way back in 2014 brought before the Court of Appeals, and it has now been brought up to the Supreme Court. So pending pa po before the Supreme Court yon.
Okay. So parang yung masisingil nyo pala sa Mega World, mapupunta naman sa... Camp
Hindi
John.
po.
But
Meron na pong naka-escrow na 1.4, ma'am. Since nanalo yung...
kayo. Okay.
Since nag-rule po yung arbitration court, may naka-escrow na po doon. Pero hindi pa po namin binabayad. Dahil po pending pa po sa Supreme Court.
Okay. And then, another observation ay yung pinasok nyo with MTD.
Opo. Yes, ma'am.
Meron din findings yung COA. Isa dun sa sports facilities, yung the contract is prejudicial to the interest of the government. So how do you address this audit finding?
Opo. So the audit observation po said that yung pong sa sports facilities, yung mode of procurement through JV, tinanong po ng COA if this is prejudicial or not to the national government. What we explained po to COA was that in the OGCC opinion dated October 2, 2018, the OGCC po confirmed the legality and endorsed the Asian Development Bank recommendation to BCDA as its transactions advisor for the development of the National Government Administrative Center as both legal and advantageous to government. So we will send a copy po of the August 2, 2018 OGCC, who is the statutory counsel po of BCDA. And important din po to note that the construction of the sports facilities was only paid for after it was duly completed and accepted by BCDA and of course used during the Southeast Asian Games. The payment was only made, in fact, after the Southeast Asian Games was hosted. It was only made earlier this year, no, in March of this year. So we explained this po to COA based on the OGCC opinion as well as the advice of the Asian Development Bank for the BCDA in order to not only complete the facilities in time for the Southeast Asian Games, but more importantly, provide the best value for the government, since we required the facilities to be accredited by both the IAAF and FINA to be used not only for the SEA Games but for future international events. Napaliwanag po namin ito sa COA in our response to their audit observation, Senator Nancy.
Okay. Yun lang, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Check Vince.
Thanks, Senator Nancy, for your questions. Vice Chair Amy, are you ready? Vice Chair Amy? Vice Chair Amy?
Nasa hearing ng
I think she's
Kakao.
attending another
Nasa hearing ng Kakao. Chair. Nasa kami
Okay.
ng hearing.
Is Minority Leader Drilon online? I think my staff texted me he's online. Because I think Senator Amy is busy with the other hearing. Are you ready, Vice Chair Amy?
I could do.
Ayan, ready na.
Yes.
Okay, we'll give you the floor, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I'd still like to inquire with regard. This is going back. This is going back to the SEA Games, but we'd like to inquire about the MTD, the capital Berhad of Malaysia. Because there was a bit of a confusion as regards the unsolicited proposal, which then became a loan, which did not go through competitive bidding, and which was cited by COA. So I was wondering if we could get the precise legal status on this. Is the MTD Berhad still involved?
Yes, Senator. If I may just go back a little bit and just briefly go through the chronology of events po, no? The consortium, the MTD Berhad Capital, a Malaysian firm with a local affiliate here in the Philippines, MTD Capital.
Yes, Secretary Dizon, we're quite familiar. Di ba 2017, there was
Yung status na lang,
solicited bid.
Vince. Yung status na lang. Yun ang tanong ni Vice Chair. She's asking about the status.
Sige po. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Opo. So
Kasi unsolicited bid, tapos medyo nagkagulo tayo kasi joint venture siya, hindi naman siya eksaktong PPP. So now, what I would just like to ask, what's the legal framework now, and do they still partially own or somehow are involved dun sa sports facilities? What are the final plans ba?
Opo. Yung pong yung joint venture is still existing because it is a joint venture between BCDA and MTD for the development of the National Government Administrative Center. However, for the
what's the prevailing legal framework? BOT, NEGA joint venture, BCDA charter? Kasi yun ang tinatanong ng COA, wala raw legal framework.
Yes. Ang legal framework po, as advised to us by the Asian Development Bank, it is a PPP under a joint venture
Asian Development Bank, sorry.
Asian Development Bank, yes, ma'am. They were our transactions advisors for this project, and the legal framework it is a joint venture under the joint venture guidelines of the Bases Conversion Development Authority. However, po, for the sports facilities, ma'am, since they have already been the aquatic center and the stadium have already been fully paid, these are now fully owned by the BCDA or the national government.
So are you saying that the project with MTD is over and the government no longer needs to pay the MTD any amount? Or may
as far as the sports facilities are concerned po, tapos na po. Opo. Dahil nabayaran na po
other arrangements aside from the construction and development of the sports facilities? Kasi sabi mo, involved pa rin yung MTD. In what way? And to the tune of how much?
Opo, this now involves the government facilities, particularly the 2 government buildings that will be leased by various government agencies, as well as the government residences, which will also be leased by government employees that will be relocating to New Clark City as part of the President's push to relocate some of the agencies from Metro Manila to Clark. So yun ang po.
The Secretary James, may utang pa tayo sa MTD sa lagay nito? Yung
Wala na
sabi
po.
ng two
Wala na po,
buildings
ma'am.
plus residences, may utang pa ang gobyerno sa MTD?
Wala na po. Those facilities po are funded by MTD, and the BCDA po gets a revenue share from the proceeds of those facilities, ma'am.
So these are owned by MTD.
Owned by the joint venture, ma'am.
They were funded and owned by MTD or by the joint venture?
By the joint venture, ma'am. By the
Yeah.
joint venture, but the capital came from MTD.
Yes, to put the matter aside na, maybe we can ask you to submit or your lawyers to submit a legal brief on what this constitutes, including sana the final terms of the BCDA MTD joint venture. Because
Yes, ma'am.
it appears that the PPP Center and other oversight agencies have as yet not received the required documentation. Is that correct?
I will check po with the PPP Center. However, like I said
Ang
po
problema
earlier,
kasi wala naman joint venture sa PPP eh. Kaya medyo nalito kami lahat eh.
meron po, ma'am. Under PPP po, joint venture is one of the modes of engaging in PPP, especially for BCDA, given its corporate nature and given its joint venture guidelines po. The
No,
NEDA, in fact, has their own.
as a matter of fact, the PPP amendments are pending in my Committee on Economic Affairs, and they have stated time and again that there is no clear legal definition of a joint venture since it is not included under the BOT law. In fact, the amendments recommend that joint venture should be included within the scope of that law.
Opo. Senator, under the
Yes.
NEDA joint venture guidelines po of 2013,
So under NEDA,
yes, under opo,
okay. That's what
BCDA
I
po,
was saying. Siguro under NEDA or under the BCDA, but not under PPP. Nagkakagulo eh.
yes po, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes
So
po. Tama
NEDA
po.
or BCDA. Siguro isulat na lang nung abogado niyo para we can do away with this. I have a question also kasi parang patong-patong yung funding. DBP ended up providing funding to the MTD for the building of the sports complex. The money was supposed to come from overseas. Biglang naging DBP na lamang.
Yes. Ang MTD po ay umutang sa DBP, commercial loan po yun, and they have already repaid the loan in full.
Why did the DBP lend to MTD? Parang wala naman yung 9.5 billion.
Local entity po, they applied for a commercial loan, Madam Senator. They applied for a commercial loan under commercial terms, which has already been fully paid po.
Okay, and I think you also got through the Philippine Sports Commission another sum of 8 billion, if I recall.
Wala po, ma'am. Wala po. We did not.
That didn't go to BCDA at all.
No.
It
No
remained
po.
with them. And it had nothing to do with the sports facilities, tama ba?
Nothing po, ma'am. Opo. No funding from the PSC was used po for any of the developments in the sports facilities, ma'am.
Yes. Are the residences you are referring to those that occur in the COA report that private individuals were allowed to use 21 units of the ASEAN Villas or ito yung ASEAN Villas na luma?
Ito po yung dati pa po, ma'am. Ito po ay dinevelop nung ASEAN nung 2017. Pero ito po ay dinispose na po at commercially po pinadispose na po ng BCDA. Po, long-term lease, ma'am. Similar to what was done for the APEC Villas in Subic
Yes, so in fact, these are the APEC Villas. These are not new construction.
No, hindi po. Apo.
The residences that you refer to are completely different.
Yes, ma'am. These are multi-story residences for government employees who will be relocating their offices to Clark. Ito po yung mga bago po ito.
but the sale of the Apex Villas or the long lease redounded to your benefit. Magkano yung kinita ng BCDA dyan?
Yes po, I will just check the figures, Madam Chair. Apologies po.
No problem. If you'd like to submit,
I will send all of the
if you would just send it
documents.
to my chairman.
Yes, Madam Chair, we will send po all the documents. We have duly noted po the observations and questions po, and we will send a complete information po with all the legal briefs and all the figures, ma'am.
Yes, I had one question when the hearing was conducted in the Committee on Sports before the SEA Games, and that was to inquire how the complex would be utilized after the games. So
Yes, ma'am.
perhaps you could give us a quick report on its utilization and your long-term plans to utilize and maintain the facilities. I recall that Senator Go said that the government still has to find lessees for local and international tournaments so that there would be revenue. Is that the case?
Ma'am, actually, if not for COVID, this year we would have had at least 5 international groups that would lease the property for on different occasions. The biggest of which would have been the Asian Swim Championships that were supposed to be held in November. This is the Asian the swimming championships po for all countries in Asia. However, as the pandemic hit, na-cancel po lahat ito. Pero I think we're very happy to inform the good Senator Pon, ma'am. I know your questions here were raised the last time I was there. But since we spoke po, we actually received a unsolicited proposal from Robinson's Land together with an Australian sports operator to operate and maintain the sports facilities, and they're proposing that they operate and run it at their own expense with revenue share for the national government. So it shows po the viability of the facilities, given that they are actually the only facilities of the quality and they are the only accredited facilities globally. Globally accredited facilities in the country. So we're very confident po, and we've spoken to the proponent. They are still very interested despite the pandemic. So we will be processing this po, and we will be constantly updating you po, especially po sa Committee on Sports.
So since the SEA Games, medyo hindi na natin nagamit at maliban dun sa Apex Villas, wala na kayong revenue.
Hindi po, ma'am. Marami pong revenue ang BCDA. Tuloy-tuloy po ang revenue from other properties, including properties in Clark. However, for the National Government Administrative Center, since the pandemic hit, we have actually used the entire complex as a mega quarantine facility, using both the Athletes Village as well as the national government offices that are there now as temporary quarantine facilities.
Yes,
However,
we saw those quarantine facilities in the news.
Sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry po.
Yes. I was just observing that we've seen the Clark facilities used as quarantine in the news.
Yes, opo. And then of course the Philippine Sports Commission is already asking us if the athletes can start training already before the end of the year, and also to maybe already hold COVID bubble events, such as the UAAP and the National Track and Field and National Swimming meets in the coming months. But of course, all of these.
Senator Go also. Yes, I understand. Yes, we've all been hit by the pandemic. Senator Go also mentioned that the Clark complex would be used for the Philippine High School for Sports. Is that in the offing still?
That is correct, ma'am. In fact, we had a meeting with Senator Go, DepEd, and PSC 2 weeks ago, and we're already starting the planning with the newly appointed executive director for the National Academy of Sports for the 5-hectare property which BCDA has already provided for the National Academy for Sports.
Who is it, Vince? Who is the new executive director?
I think it is Joy Reyes, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, what's the background?
I think she has a huge background in sports. Um, and also, I think right now, I think she was recommended po by Senator Pia Cayetano, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
got it.
Thank you. So Vince, Secretary Dizon, please, if you would submit unang-una the legal status of the NTD Berhad joint venture contract, as well as also if you could submit to my chairman the breakdown of the revenues in the past year.
Yes, ma'am. We will do so, ma'am. Thank you po. We
Thank
will
you
do so
very much.
in the next few days.
Okay, that will be all, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Madam Vice Chair Amy. Thank you for your questions. Vince, magkano yung nasa budget ng 2021 for the Sports Academy, National Sports Academy?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, yun nga po sana yung isa naming i-raise and na-raise na rin po namin sa lower house. Hindi po sinama ng DBM sa NEP ang budget for the National Sports Academy dahil parang ano po ata hindi pa po ata siya na pirmahan at that time nung pinrepare po, and we are actually requesting for some funding for based on the newly passed law
What is your request?
229 million po, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, sige.
We
I'll try
will
to
formally
comply your
request it po, and we have also sent the same request to the lower house, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So I don't think Senator Dillon was here earlier, but I think he had to attend the Committee on National Defense. So any other
Mr.
questions
Chair?
from our colleagues? Yeah, Senator Nancy.
Hindi, siguro for the Sports Academy, ano mako-cover ng 220 million? Assuming na we can source the funds.
This will be for the phase 1 po of the development, which will, based on the requirements po of DepEd and PSC, which will target po a school opening by school year 2022, Mr. Chairman.
Siguro, President Vince, could you give us a roadmap for the whole thing para in the installment basis, makita natin how far we are along.
Yes po. Ongoing pa po kasi yung master planning ngayon. We're waiting for input from the new executive director as well as the board of trustees.
Right.
Pero
Update us
we will po. Senator Nancy, Mr. Chairman, we will update you po.
Okay, Senator Nancy, go ahead, Senator Nancy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I don't think there are other questions. I think we're done. So, if there are other questions, we'll endorse favorably your budgetary request to the plenary, President Vince, and all the other officials, including sa park development, and we'll try as best as we can to try and augment it for the National Academy. As you know, we are among the authors there, no? So thank you, President Vince, and all the colleagues, Vice Chair Amy and Senator Nancy, for taking time. We have DOJ at 10 o'clock, so see you at 10 o'clock for DOJ if you're interested in their budget. Thank you, President Vince.
Thank you
Good
very
luck
much, Mr.
with the
Chairman.
IPTF.
Senator Amy, Senator Nancy, thank you so much po. Please stay safe po.